My name is Jeremy Friesen. I use pronouns he, him. I work at Services by Scientist.com. I am a senior lead engineer on that team, and I'm also a board member for Samvera. And bear with me, I'm going to walk through quite a lot of technical stuff, but I'll make this stuff available afterwards. Check it. So in this presentation, it started out as a workshop for RailsConf 2023, and I pivoted away from the content, but I had a lot of this already created. So I thought, let me share this in a format that is much more presentation oriented. We'll walk through Shell, Ruby, and my text editor. I keep losing focus on this. So a little wayfinding. I've enabled some key bindings at the bottom so you can see what I'm typing. Throughout this, we're going to see two chunks of blocks, bash, and margin notes. The margin notes are if I were kind of chattering in Slack myself. All right, section one shell of a game. We're going to go over these 5 things. I do have some more, but for time's sake, we're going to cut real quick. So tree. So this is a command that can give you some insight into the structure of your directory. And I'll give you just a quick example, and I'll show you another use case later. But I run this in my editor, and it kicks out a little ASCII tree of the directories that are in this repository. Next up, we have RIP grep. Grep is dead. I encourage you to look at either this or the Silver Searcher, sometimes called AG. This one I use all the time, every day. It's actually baked into my editor for ridiculously fast searching and very powerful searching. So I'm going to show a couple of examples. First, due to the nature of my work, I work on lots of projects across different clients, and sometimes it's really important for me to know the context of what are the gems that we're using. So I have this little RIP grep script that I run, and it just says the British Library currently uses these gem versions. It's a quick way for me to orient, to go over to the repositories on my machine, check them out so I can kind of get a sense of what's what. Another one, this is just a little fun thing. It shows a couple of different ways to do commands. It introduces the substitution and for no purpose, because I ultimately sort them, pipe them into unique, and then count the number of words. So my editor, I have 152 packages that I've declared as important for the work I do. Carefully curated, much like, I don't know, a basket of flowers. Next up, I have this script to highlight how preposterously fast RIP grep is. What this is doing is it is querying all the repositories that I have on my machine and looking for this term. I'll just run it. Count to about 1, and it shows these are where all the files that have a hit on that as part of the content. And if we look, that is 119 repositories. So this is a way to step up one level and get an amazing overview of the code that you have on your machine in total. All right. Next up, I want to show you a cool little feature called Control R. This is the reverse iSearch. Normally, I don't have the normal. You do Control R and you get this unhelpful blank place to type stuff in. Instead, you get this wonderful history, and you'll notice at the bottom it says Control Y to copy the command to the clipboard. That is a custom feature that I added to this little toolkit. So search for it and it puts it right on my terminal, and then I can amend it there. Still no cure for a typo, but it'll do. All right, so there are 2 ways to do that. OhmyZeesh has some plugins that does substring history search, or you can use FZF, fuzzy find. I tend to prefer fuzzy find for a couple of reasons, and we'll go a little bit further into that. I already showed you Control R, and now I'm going to show you Control T. So clear that out. Control T is going through, and it has on the right, it uses a tool called BAT to look at the code, and it gives me a way to search for this, and I can proceed to go config, and then it'll give me that. I also mapped so I can do Control O, which will open that file in my text editor, which is kind of cool. Also Control Y will copy the thing to the clipboard. Next, I have Alt C. This one is similar to Control T, but it uses the tree that we talked about previously and shows all these different directories. Plus I get the RDF vocab and it starts searching on it. And it gives me an orientation of what files am I going to be working with if I jump into that directory. And once I pick one, it will CD over into that directory. Okay, fast forward through the configurations. Those are quite boring. BAT. So on the terminal, cat is ubiquitous. It's used everywhere to look at text files, but you can install BAT and get a little bit more out of it. Let's bring up my history. Oh, it lost it. Okay, we'll just build it ourselves. Git derivative rodeo readme. Here is BAT. It shows it with line numbers as well as a little bit of syntax highlighting. And this works across a lot of different MIME types. So I like it. Another nice feature is it will show you invisible characters. I lost about half a day of my life trying to find a byte order marker in a CSV file, and that is no fun. All right, time check, fantastic. I'm gonna keep going fast. So methods, I wanna just do two things for Ruby. There are tons more, but I think these are useful. First and foremost, every object has methods. I'm running the script and it will kick out, these are all the methods it has. Nothing too super useful, but you can also run grep on that. So let's go ahead and do that. And instead it'll show the three methods that that string has that have the characters ID in them. This one is a little cuckoo bananas because first I have to make a Ruby file, write it, require it, and then find the source location. And I can say, what's the source location of the method world? And it is the second line of this arbitrary file. A cool little thing that I learned about this past year, thank you, I believe it was Shayna, we have the ability, if you use pry, to look at the method's source. That was the method that we wrote. Why is that useful? Sometimes you're in a debugger and you're like, oh, what was the content of the method that I just called? You can use the method object to find its source. I think that's pretty cool, helps you understand what's going on. Next, I want to encourage making fast feedback. This is how can you get your tests to run fast in a space where tests don't run fast. There are a couple of different tips and tricks that you can do. I just want you to kind of think about them because they require exploring and they're never consistent, but they are a fun little puzzle on their own. First, you can get rid of the spec helper and make explicit requires. You could also make a little gem to test the logic without it, or you can do the old file equal $0 trick, which is weird. Oh, what is that? That's a good question. So Ruby, when you do a require, it does not, you're not bashing that file, you are loading it. But if you call Ruby and the file name, it will know that this block where it says if file equal $0, it will know that you're running Ruby on that file and it will perform that. So you might be able to write some really fast tests or kind of poke at it in a different way when you have that little trick. Thank you, Perl, I believe, for that. Next up, I want to talk about Emacs, an over-the-hill editor in a Sisyphean world. So a little history. 3 years ago, I switched from Atom. It was deprecated, and I went looking for new tools, Vim and VS Code. I reluctantly shifted to Emacs, having tried in 2005. But given that Vim just never sticks in my brain, and I have some extreme issues with VS Code for other reasons, I settled on Emacs. And I'll say this, in 3 weeks, I was as productive in Emacs as I was in Atom, Sublime, and TextMate in the years before. And now I am continually improving my computering skills and tools, sometimes with tremendous leaps. I'm going to show you a few of them. You already saw org babel in play where I can add code inside a document and execute it. And you can do a lot more intense things. This is used in like scientific research or in presentations. But org mode also supports time tracking, personal knowledge management, to-do items, and presentations such as this or even better formats. Next up, this is the whirlwind, information hunting and gathering. I'm going to slow down and walk through this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start a clock, and then I'm going to navigate through code and accumulate things when I start that clock. So I have my agenda for today. I'm going to narrow it to today. I'm going to hop over here and I'm going to say, hey, Samvera Connect. There we go. Here's the clock time that I'm keeping. I'm going to start the clock, which is now running. This all is text, so I can change it. Okay, that's the simple part. And now I'm going to go, let's go to the derivative rodeo. Let's find the, what's it called? Step. Fits. Why not fits? And I'm going to just simply highlight this and push F8, and it prompts me, and I can say, all right, I'm looking at fits. What's that about? I'll close it, and I'm like, all right, let's go over to the test. Jumped over there real quick. I'm like, all right, let's add some more. Got this test, but what? So close that up and then close that down, jump over here, and here is me slowly accumulating the content. It's providing me the function name, where it's at on my file system, which is a live link, as well as where it is on GitHub. So I can, or GitLab, or some of those other ones. And it also took what I was writing. And what this then allows me to do is like quickly jump from different repositories, slam these things together, start looking at the code that I'm trying to, and perhaps make a playbook or some documentation. And all because I said, dump these things into the place where I'm tracking time, which I think is a pretty cool feature. So let's go back, pardon me, to there. Next one. This is a little quote that I have, a riffs off of Arthur C. Clarke. I have a lot of projects, personal and whatnot. My wife runs a small business, so I'm working on things there too. And what I created is this index of indices. And I'll show you. So here are the various projects: role-playing games, British Library, working with IU, the rodeo. So let's take a look at Samvera. I have 3 things that it will launch me to, either the notes I have on Samvera, the remote code, or the local code. Let's hop over to the notes. And this is my bespoke project index tool. So here are the notes. In the slightly grayer area between lines 15 and 1 is the metadata. And all of that metadata is queried using REPL to find the project stuff. Back to the presentation. All right, tree sitter. This one is a tool about syntax highlighting. And I wrote this silly little function that I never thought I would use all that much, but I was curious about tree sitter. And it turned out I used it all the time. I type the command, get the current scope function, and it finds the fully qualified module name as well as the method name. And it puts it in my paste buffer. And I can see it at the bottom. It was this little thing that helped me understand kind of where I was at, but also I could copy it and paste that into other things, which helped make things easy for writing a new gem. Next up is this menu that I wrote for my text editor. These are commands that are things I want to remember or call quite often. And these jump to will go to places that I want. So I'm going to jump to the Team Violet project board, and it'll open up a browser. I can also jump to PDFs if I've defined them, or local files. It has some MIME type sniffing to figure that out. And these menu items that I put on there, I put them there to be a reminder to use them or because I use them. So it helps me improve my personal like habits of computering, as I like to think of it. This was something that started emerging as I was working with my text editor, is that I can write these super ephemeral functions. This one that I have here, I was pasting this into a numerous commit messages because I wanted to keep tracking where it's all going. And I realized, why don't I just make this function so I can do it really quick? And then when I'm done with it, I'll just delete it. This took me all of a minute to write, and I used it several times and saved tens of minutes as I might have had to go look up stuff for references. All right, so conclusion, uh, work with your tools. Knowledge work is really about needles and haystacks. So helping improve your ability to navigate through needles and haystacks is a good thing. And last, I'll just quote the one thing from tabletop RPGs, like play to find out. We are all programmers. We should be playing with our tools to understand how we might better use them. Thank you. And I'll take any questions or a drink of water.